Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MTG Traders. My name is Taryn, and this is Blue-White Spirits for Modern. So today is Modern Monday, and I'm bringing with you a sweet deck tech for today. I won't be streaming it today because I will be out of town, but I will be streaming it later this week, so keep in touch for that. But of course, before I get into the video, make sure to like the video if you like it, and subscribe to the channel. Helps us out a lot, helps keep the content growing, and helps keep my sanity strong. By the way, the purple hair that I did on Friday, it's like turning into pink now, that's cool, it's fine, whatever. But if you didn't know, Blue-White Spirits is a deck where it goes wide with creatures and kind of locks down our opponent with our creature board state and then gets in with flying damage for the win. We have a lot of synergistic strategies here to help get our opponent kind of on the back foot and make sure they stay on the back foot the rest of the match. So without further ado, let's get right into it with our Figure of Destiny. This is a Kithkin. It is a 1 white or red mana, so we're gonna use white mana here. It is a 4 of 1/1 here. We can pay 1 white mana. Figure of Destiny becomes a 2/2 Kithkin Spirit, which we want to use spirits here. Then if we pay 3, a Figure of Destiny, if it's a spirit, it becomes a 4/4 Spirit Warrior. And if we pay 6, if Figure of Destiny is a warrior, it becomes an 8/8 Kithkin Spirit Warrior Avatar with flying and first strike. This is an interesting card to me because it's basically a card that like had level up before level up was really a thing. But it's also a great turn 1 play and a great way to kind of like dump your mana into a creature if nothing else is on the battlefield for us. This card just gives us a huge way to be able to turn it from a 1/1 into a spirit, and then from a spirit into a 4/4, and then from a 4/4 into a flying first striker that's an 8/8. That's ridiculous. So watch out for Figure of Destiny. It can definitely win games out of nowhere if your opponent isn't expecting it. Moving on to another card here, we have a Mausoleum Wanderer. This is a card from the Eldritch Moonshadowed over Innistrad block. This is a 4 of 1 blue mana, 1/1 spirit with flying, and whenever another spirit enters the battlefield under your control, Mausoleum Wanderer gets +1/+1 until end of turn. But that's not all. This card does so much more. Sacrifice Mausoleum Wanderer, counter target instant or sorcery spell unless its controller plays X, or X is Mausoleum Wanderer's power. So it can't just be a simple like counter target spell unless its controller plays 1 or 2 or 3, depending on if you have flash creatures on the battlefield coming in that turn, or if our opponent is trying to like path to exile something, and we can flash in some creatures as well. Mausoleum Wanderer to us is another fantastic turn 1 play for us. Figure of Destiny is a great way for us to kind of dump our mana into it, but Mausoleum Wanderer is a great way for us to actually get a lot of pump power from our board state, as well as be able to kind of hold up attacks, or hold up counters rather, on our board state as well. That's awesome. Moving up here, we have 4 Rattle Chains. This is a 2 mana 2/1 spirit with flash, flying, and when Rattle Chains enters the battlefield, target spirit gains hexproof until end of turn, and you may cast spirit spells as though they had flash. So Figure of Destiny actually doesn't benefit from this ability here, as it isn't a spirit when it's like in your hand. It's just a Kithkin. It turns into a spirit later, which is good for us. But everything else in our deck does have flash because they are spirits, which means Rattle Chains is ridiculous at coming in, being able to give one creature hexproof, so it comes in kind of protecting a creature if they try to path to exile it or fatal push it or something. And we can also like make sure that all of our cards in our hand have flash as well. You'll notice that while the spirits don't have a lot of power and toughness in this regard, they do have a lot of like utility and the ability to win a game out of nowhere thanks to their like kind of pseudo weird like counter and control abilities. Moving on though, we have 4 Selfless Spirit. This is another card that's really annoying for an opponent. This is a 4 of 2 mana 2/1 Spirit Cleric with flying, and we can sacrifice Selfless Spirit. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. So that means if our opponent has a board wipe, or if they have any kind of like kill spell in their hand, like a fatal push or a lightning bolt, we can sacrifice Selfless Spirit and protect those creatures as well. More often than not, they're going to want to target Selfless Spirit first, so it can be kind of a weird removal magnet, which is awesome for us. But with cards like Rattle Chains as well, Selfless Spirit can be a great way for us to actually get in a great block to our advantage and make sure all of our creatures have indestructible that turn. Selfless Spirit is just kind of one of those cards that just kind of comes out of nowhere. It can definitely wreck an opponent's game plan. So let's move on here to another card. We have Bygone Bishop. This is a card that I didn't see in a lot of lists, but I did like based on our mana curve here. This is a 2 of 3 mana 2/3 Spirit Cleric with flying, and whenever a creature spell with converted mana cost 3 or less is cast, we investigate, which means we put a colorless clue artifact token onto the battlefield with we can pay 2, sacrifice it, and draw a card. So it does give us kind of like this much needed like push in the mid to late game where we have some much needed card draw. I did like Bygone Bishop for that especially, but it's also a 2/3 flyer for 3, which is fine. It can definitely be brought in with Rattle Chains for flash, and it can definitely be used as a great attacker for us thanks to like protection spells like Rattle Chains or Mausoleum Wanderer. But speaking of muscle, let's move on to a pump spell for us, or rather a lord. This is Drogskull Captain. This is a 4 of 3 mana 2/2 Spirit Soldier with with flying, and other spirit creatures you control get +1/+1 and have hexproof. Hexproof is the best part of this card here. It does give us +1/+1, which is also great, so it turns our dorky 2/1s into 3/2s, being able to attack out with flying, but it also gives them hexproof, meaning our opponent cannot Path to Exile, or Fatal Push, or Lightning Bolt unless they Lightning Bolt the captain first. And as I said earlier, if we have the Selfless Spirit or the Mausoleum Wanderer on the battlefield, Drogsko Captain is probably, more often than not, going to be fine. So that's our Lord. What is our big bomb, or rather, our big tempo gainer in the deck? And that would be Spell Queller here, a 4/3 mana 2/3 spirit with flash, flying, and when Spell Queller enters the battlefield, exile target spell with converted mana cost 4 or less. That's basically every card in Modern, by the way. When Spell Queller leaves the battlefield, the exiled card's owner may cast the card without paying its mana cost. So the downside to Spell Queller if it does die is that they get to cast it without paying its mana cost because they already did cast it, which is fine, that's fair. But also, we have the great ability here to like grab a Tarmogoyf, grab a Fatal Push, grab a Lightning Bolt, grab whatever we want to, and kind of slow down our opponent's roll and make sure that our game plan is going to go forward and give us a win. A great setup here is a turn 3 Drogsko Captain into a turn 4 Spell Queller, grabbing something from our opponent, which is ridiculous. Because keep in mind, the Drogsko Captain gives all of our other spirits hexproof, and if Spell Queller has hexproof, that's basically a spell we just keep forever unless we want to trade with blocks. That is insane. But there are 26 creatures in total in the deck, and that is all. We have the Spell Queller at the top of our list here. Let's go on to spells here. We have 4 Path to Exile. So this is here for our, Tarmogoyfs, our weird Bloodblade Elves, anything we do not like on our opponent's side of the field. Perhaps a Bloodghast, something like that, a Hollow one especially. We definitely want to get rid of those as quickly as possible. Path to Exile is a 1 mana removal spell for us. It's an instant, exile target creature. Its controller may search his or her library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle his or her library. So fantastic for us. This does mean that an early Path to Exile does give our opponent a big advantage, so like a turn 3 or turn 2 Path to Exile is probably not a good idea. You want to wait till like a turn 5 or 6 where the mana doesn't mean as much to an opponent. Inadvertently wrapping them with a Path to Exile is not the way we want to go with this card, but it's a great card for us to remove a creature nevertheless. Moving up here for us, we have 2 Serum Visions. Just a great draw card for us. Is the 1 blue mana sorcery, draw a card, then scry 2. Basically giving us a way to look at 3 cards, get 1 into our hand, and scry either the ones on top or to the bottom. Just a really simple, straightforward card for us, and one we like in the main deck here. Next up here for us, we have 3 Remand. This was a spot for Mana Leak for a little bit, but I did like Remand because it does draw us a card. It's a 2 mana instant counter target spell. If that spell is countered this way, put it into its owner's hand instead of into the player's graveyard, then draw a card. So all this is doing is basically slowing our opponent down if they get to tap out. The bad side here is that if we're playing up against Jund and they do a Bloodbraid Elf, Remand is going to suck for us because they get to recast Bloodbraid Elf the following turn. And as we all know, Cascade is redonkulous. So if you're playing against Jund, you want to take out Remand and bring in something from the sideboard. And moving on to the last 2 cards here besides land, we have Steel of the Godhead. This is a 3 mana enchantment aura with enchant creature. As long as the enchanted creature is white, it gets +1/+1 and has lifelink, which is great for us against a burn deck. And as long as the enchanted creature is blue, it gets +1/+1 and has unblockable. Now we've just put a 2 of in here because it's a great way for us to get lifelink back from a burn deck, and it's also a great way for us to get some unblockable damage through with a Drogsko Captain or a Spell Queller with lifelink on top of it as well. Steel of the Godhead is just a very interesting card for us, as it does give us kind of 2 different abilities depending on what kind of creature we put it on. And having 8 creatures in the deck that are an either or of blue and white means we have +1/+1 lifelink and +1/+1 and unblockable, which is ridiculous. But that is it for all the cards in the main board here. Let's go over lands real quick. We have 4 of Glacial Fortress. This is a buddy land entering the battlefield tapped unless we control a plains or an island. We also have Port Town, which means we need to reveal a plains or island card from our hand, and if we don't, Port Town enters the battlefield tapped. We also have Prairie Stream, which is a great card that enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands, which is great for us. We also have 2 Field of Ruin to help kind of get rid of any kind of annoying, like nasty, like Gavany Township, something like that from our opponent's game plan. Keep in mind this also gets another land for us, so it comes in untapped as well, which is very good. Then we have 2 Moorland Haunt here. Because we have spirits, we know we want to put Moorland Haunt in here. It's a land that taps for 1 colorless. We can pay 1 blue and 1 white, tap it, exile a creature card from your graveyard, put a 1/1 white spirit creature token for flying onto the battlefield. So great for us to be able to kind of like pump into another creature. And then we have 4 plains and 5 island, and that is the full 60 on the game 1 game plan. But what can we do in game 2? Let's go to the sideboard here. We have 2 Ceremonious Rejection. This is going to be dealing with any kind of card, any kind of colors thing like a Karn. A turn 3 Karn is ridiculous, so you want to deal with that. This is a 2 of 1 blue mana instant counter target colorless spell. That's Karn, that's Eldrazi. You know what that is. And of course, this also works against Affinity as well. Next up here for us, we have 2 Fragmentize. This is a 1 white mana sorcery. Destroy target artifact or enchantment with converted mana cost 4 or less, which again, 4 or less is basically everything in Modern. Fragmentize is great for that. I wish it had instant speed on it instead of sorcery, but for 1 white mana, it's fine. Moving on here, we have 2 Blessed Alliance. This is to get around cards that have hexproof or cards like Boggles, things like that. This is a 2 mana instant with Escalate, which means you can pay 2 more for each mode. Target player gains 4 life, untap up to 2 target creatures, or target opponent sacrifices an attacking creature, which is going to be most likely, hopefully, our Boggles. Moving on, we have 2 Celestial Purge in here, a 2 mana instant exiling target black or red permanent. That's going to hopefully deal with a Death Shadow or maybe a Hazoret, whatever our opponent is going to be playing that's black or red. Next up for us, we have Kentucky War's Wage. This is a 2 mana 2/1 legendary creature spirit, and all artifacts have, at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice this artifact unless you pay 1 colorless. So this is a great way to kind of slow down an Affinity player, and a great way for us to also get a 2/1 spirit on the battlefield. But I will say Kentucky is probably one of the more expensive cards in the list here in the sideboard. Next up here for us, we have 2 Rest in Peace. Lots of cards have, like, you know, Delve, Flashback, things like that. We want to bring this in for those kind of matchups. It's a 2 mana enchantment. When Rest in Peace enters the battlefield, exile all cards from all graveyards, and if a card or token would be put into the graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. So a great way for us to slow down our opponent who is using either Storm or any kind of Delve mechanic or any kind of Flashback mechanic as well. Moving on to go wide strategies, we have Detention Sphere here. This is a 3 mana enchantment. When Detention Sphere enters the battlefield, you may exile target non-land permanent not named Detention Sphere and all permanents with the same name as that permanent. So if it's like, you know, a token strategy, we get to exile 1 token and all the tokens of the same name. When Detention Sphere leaves the battlefield, return the exile card to the battlefield under their owner's control, which is great for us as well. So if it's a token strategy, then that just completely destroys their creatures. But if it's like 2 Tarmogoyfs, we just get rid of those Tarmogoyfs for now until our opponent can maybe get rid of a Detention Sphere. And that's usually going to be in like a game 2 game plan. Of course, we're sideboarding into a Detention Sphere as well, so they may not have any kind of enchantment removal just yet. So replacing our Seal the Godhead with Detention Sphere is fine. And the last card in the sideboard for us, a 1 of Kira Great Glass Spinner. This is a 3 mana 2/2 legendary spirit with flying. And creatures you control have, whenever this creature becomes a target of a spell or ability for the first time in the turn, counter that spell or ability, which is fantastic for us for 3 mana. If you thought having Drogsko Captain with a Mausoleum Wanderer on the battlefield would be hard to deal with, try playing Kira the Great Glass Spinner and seeing if our opponent can get around that. That's ridiculous. But that is the full 75, folks, and on MTGO Traders it's coming to about 82 tickets, which isn't too bad for a modern deck, and in paper it's coming to just under $200 with 180 in Buckaroos. But that is the full 75, guys. Game 1 game plan is go for a Figure of Destiny, Mausoleum Wanderer on turn 1, Rattle Chains or Selfless Spirit on turn 2, Drogsko Captain or Spell Queller if we need it on turn 3 on the end step, Bygone Bishop to draw some cards in the mid to late game, a Path to Exile, and Remand to hopefully slow down our opponent for long enough to get a captain out to win the match, and Steal the Godhead to pump up whatever creatures on the battlefield so we can get in for either lifelink damage or some unblockable damage. But that is the full 75, guys. Let me know what you think. Do you like it? Do you hate it? If you have any suggestions for it, please let me know in those comments down below. Would love to hear what you guys have to say, and would love to hear if you guys have a future deck in Modern that you want me to cover. Would love to talk about them on the channel right here. But that's it for the video, guys. Make sure to like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next video or on the next stream. Peace.